Week 14 injury show. Dr. Gene Shirokobrod here with Dr. Cory Hough. We are just a couple physical therapists who like fantasy football and
Just a couple physical therapists.
like to talk about injuries and how they might impact your fantasy football team. I'd like to say so far so well. I think we've had some good tips so far. It's worked out. All right, let's pull up our list here. Good. I just want to make sure I have the live chat here for anybody who wants to submit any questions. We will get to the questions at the end if there are any. Yep, we had a good bit of questions last week. So if you have injury questions or lineup questions, we had a lot of lineup questions last week. Go ahead and send those in, and we'll get to them throughout the show. Playoff time is nearly here. Yeah, nearly here.
Fantasy playoff time.
Fantasy playoffs. Yeah,
does that matter?
Start week 15 of the regular season in most leagues. Technically, I guess if your league is weird and have their own setup, maybe they start this week. Maybe they start week 16. But typically, it's week 15. Week 14 is usually the last week of the season. So, Gene in our league went from having at one point, I think the lowest was a 10% chance of making the playoffs. Or it was a 10% chance at one point. He made a bunch of moves, and now he's at a 99% chance of making the playoffs.
4 seed currently.
Some crazy
seed, tied for 3.
4 seed right now. Crazy predicaments would have to unravel in order for you to miss the playoffs. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. I feel like I've accomplished something this year by doing
this.
this.
You should.
That was a big deal. And our
first caller, caller number 1.
We said hold off on the questions until we get later into it. It's over there. I'm a big fan, as you can tell. You and I are very much the same, of making changes to the lineup for the betterment of the lineup. We have plenty of people in our league that are like, ride or die. This is my team. I am not changing anything. Even if I am last place, I don't care, which I don't understand.
No, you have no loyalty to a team. Yeah, they don't care about you. The players don't care about you. Why do you care about them?
No, because if they cared, they would get you 16 points every single game. They don't care about you. No. They definitely do not. So we made moves. I made a lot of moves. Yes, you have to get lucky. Obviously, some of them were waiver pickups. But we're in a 14-team league. I mean, there's only so many players that you can pick up. But the trades have worked out. I think most of the trades have been mutually beneficial, except for the ones that I've made with Landry.
Poor Landry. We have a guy in our league named Landry.
Shout out.
He was in last place in our league last year.
Yes.
We even dubbed it the Lando.
The last place
loser would win the Lando, and he was the inaugural Lando winner last year. He started the season off great. He was like
6-0.
He was 6-0. He's lost the next 6 weeks in a row.
He's 6-6.
And now he's, like a 50-50 shot to make the playoffs.
Yeah, if he doesn't win next week.
It's a big deal. So maybe Landry should tune into our show a little bit more often.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe that would help.
Maybe if he did, he wouldn't have been. He didn't play Tennessee defense last week against the Eagles.
Speaking of defense,
still yelling at him about.
I had a good week, 125 points.
Great week.
Most weeks that would do well. I played Rob, who had the Browns defense, and I don't even remember who the kicker was, but between the kicker and his defense, they scored 52 points just between those two people.
The defense had 30-plus points.
Defense had 3 defensive
touchdowns.
A trifecta. They had an interception, a pick 6. They had a fumble recovery for a touchdown and a punt return for a touchdown.
Unbelievable. I've never seen that in a defense before. I've never seen a defense scored that many points.
If the guy in first place in our league, he lost this week to you.
Yep. Jason.
So if I would have won this week, I would have had the opportunity for a 1 seed if I would have won again the following week. And now that is gone. So Jason has clinched a number 1 seed in our league, which, because it's 14 league bye with 7 people making the playoffs, that's a week 1 bye for Jason.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Yep. But one of the main reasons Jason lost this week was because he had Lamar Jackson as his QB1.
And a big deal that he has a week 1 bye because Lamar Jackson left the game with a knee injury. Literally just this morning, they confirmed that is what you and I thought was a PCL sprain. They didn't say it was torn, so that's a good deal. They're expecting somewhere between 1 to 3 weeks being out. With this being week 14, he will most likely be out this week. I mean, 9.9 out of 10 guaranteed to be out this week.
I don't see any reality in which Lamar plays.
No, who are the Ravens playing this week?
The Ravens are playing. That's a good question.
I do know that they're going to play Cincinnati the last game of the regular season.
Pittsburgh. The Ravens are playing Pittsburgh.
Ravens, so another divisional game.
So it's a divisional game.
Pittsburgh has been playing better as of late. They're still not a great team.
Right. But their defense is fine. And since Watt came back, he's been they have a stout defensive front. If you haven't noticed, though, over the last couple of weeks, the Ravens offense has been playing, let's call it
crappy.
Yes. Very, very crappy.
I know, because I have Mark Andrews, and he's supposed to be the number 2 tight end and has not been. Well, this past week, he did better than Kelsey, but it's been tough for Ravens offensive players past little bit.
Yep. Greg Roman's on the hot seat, and it looks like he's going to get the Stanford head coaching job. So the play calling has been a big question mark. But Lamar just doesn't have anybody to throw to except for Mark Andrews. But the play calls have been very, very shoddy. But I was watching that game because I'm a Ravens fan. And as soon as I saw Lamar get tackled and he got up gingerly, one of two things popped into my head. Number one, concussion, because the way he was driven down into the ground was head first. And number two, his knee, because his knee went right into the ground as well. So he got up and he kind of hobbled to the side. He was on the injury report the week before with a quad injury. But typical, and one of the most famous ones, a PCL injury, was when Mark Sanchez was playing. And that's when PCLs. That's infamous.
Oh, okay.
But a PCL injury, and we talked about a little bit about this, is PCL is the opposite of the cruciate ligaments. Its famous cousin is the ACL. And the PCL sits behind. And the most common way to injure that is when you land right on top of the knee and it shifts this tibia bone back, which sprains the PCL.
Right. So him landing on his knee in a bent position likely shifted that tibia posteriorly or backwards.
Right. With the defender driving him down. So his trunk goes forward and the force of the ground hits the tibia and drives that knee backwards and sprains the PCL. So the good news is that's an injury you can play through, and it's different than the ACL just because of its structure, and it keeps the knee from going back.
Tough news for that, though, is Lamar's such a mobile quarterback.
Exactly.
When he does come back, and they are expecting him to be back this season. It's not a season ender. What does that look like with his mobility? Will he be forced to throw the ball a little bit more often than he normally would? It's part of his game to be mobile. He's gonna run, but I wonder how much that'll play into his game when he comes back.
I think similar to what we talked about with Fields last week, and he did end up playing, was that they will not let him play until he can play his game.
What do the Ravens care? He didn't sign a contract extension with them. Let him hurt himself, and then they can say, "I told you so." Should have taken the easy money earlier this year.
I think the biggest question mark will be is Huntley, who came in and
did
drove
serviceable.
the Ravens down for it was a 90+ yard drive to win the game. Two things happened with Huntley, who is a must waiver pickup, I think, because the Ravens are going to plug him right in, and he has a very similar skill set to Lamar, and not quite as dynamic or as fast.
Yeah, we saw that last year. He came in for 5 games for Lamar,
and he won none of them.
But he played like a Lamar Jr.
Right. From a fantasy standpoint, he's a great plug-in. He's a great, I think, fantasy stand-in. So I think you should definitely pick him up on the waiver wire. But he is not going to. He's going to probably throw a little bit more than run like Lamar.
He completed like 80 something.
One of the highest completion ratings.
Yeah. And when he came in for Lamar this past week
But
and before, but
they averaged like 5 yards.
Yeah.
So he's not at least in that game, because he came off mid-series, Lamar. And then the play calling changed drastically when Huntley came in, right? The play calling became what fans have been wanting Greg Roman to call for Lamar. And all of a sudden he started doing that with Huntley, and they started to open up the field. So if you're looking for a quarterback, if you're start for a quarterback, Huntley is definitely a waiver claim that you should have.
One thing to note this week, there are, I want to say 6 teams on a bye or something like that.
Huge,
which is kind of odd for the last week of the season.
Indy's out.
Right. So you don't have very many other options.
Yep.
Quarterback wise. And if you're in a deep league like ours, there's like 5 potential quarterbacks that you could even have.
Huntley should be top of the list. Fields is on a bye for me, so I'm putting a waiver claim in for Huntley for sure.
Yep.
I have Derek Carr, so I'm not that concerned. I'm still going to play Derek Carr no matter what, because now I have Devontae Adams, one of my last second trades.
It was literally 2 minutes to go in our trade deadline.
Yeah, it went through. I traded Jonathan Taylor and DJ Moore for Devontae Adams and Devin Singletary. So pretty excited about that.
Let's talk about another quarterback that's he's not coming back.
He's not coming back.
Jimmy Garoppolo, kind of an unfortunate situation because he had already lost the job to Trey Lance in the preseason, right? That 49ers said, hey, we're going to go with Trey Lance.
Said his goodbyes.
Then Trey Lance breaks his ankle, I believe. Is out for the season. Jimmy Garoppolo steps in, and they've won like 5 out of their past 6 games.
Which is a big news story that Jimmy G was doing so well, his resurgency.
And then this past week, he breaks his foot.
Yeah, I was watching that game too.
Yeah, and you could see it bend the wrong way. The post-game conference said that he broke multiple things in his foot, I think is what, like, the actual words that they said, multiple things or many things or something. So Jimmy Garoppolo is out for the rest of the year. Speaking of people who came in and did pretty well, was his last name is Purdy. I can't remember his first name.
Mr. Irrelevant.
He was the last
pick
of the NFL draft this past year. Now, I wouldn't say he's a must pick up as in the case of Huntley, but the 49ers have so many weapons available to him. All he has to do is dump the ball to Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey.
Which is what he did most of the game.
Right. And they can get a bunch of yards after the catch and make the quarterback stack those points. So he's definitely an option in those, especially in the deeper leagues like ours. He
did all right. He's got a little bit of mobility.
Brock Purdy. I wanted to get his name in there.
He ran around. He made some decent plays in that game. Watching him play, you would not have known that he was the last pick of that draft.
No,
he played reasonably well.
I mean, you look at some number 1 overall picks like Trevor Lawrence last year, and he did not. This year he's doing a lot better, but just goes to show that your draft position doesn't always mean you're automatically going to be good when you come back.
No, absolutely not. Speaking of Trevor Lawrence, he had a scare, and it looked very similar.
Who were the Jaguars playing this past week?
Who were they playing?
They were playing my Detroit Lions.
Were they? Did Detroit win?
Detroit won 40-14. And I think how it works, Jaguars beat the Ravens.
Yes.
Lions beat the Jaguars. Ergo, Lions are better than the Ravens. That's how that works, right?
I'm pretty sure as long as the Lions officially lost to the Ravens on a 66-yard field goal. Exactly.
The pain.
Exactly. They're still not better than the Ravens.
That was the worst. That was my worst day of 2021. There was a lot of bad things in 2021.
Because we were talking smack before the game, and you were so excited to text me what the Ravens are going to lose.
Because the Lions were winning. It was like, this is going to happen. But that was a year ago. I don't want to talk about it now.
You brought it up, so.
But yes, he left. I believe he came back, but it is something to monitor.
His foot got rolled up underneath of him, and it looked like it was similar but opposite of Jimmy G, in that his foot was underneath of him, his leg was being rolled, and his ankle went the other way. So it looked like almost like a Dak Prescott type of situation from a year ago, like a fracture dislocation. But he was seen jogging on the sideline and looked like he was going to be pretty good. So that's a huge break of luck for them. No pun intended.
Yeah, for sure. And the Lions have been looking good the past few weeks.
The Lions have looked good.
They've won 4 of the last 6 or 5 of the last 6 or something
they gave
crazy.
The Bills a run for their money on Thanksgiving. But that taking a little detour. Speaking of quarterbacks, I mean, Goff is a legit start for most.
Yeah, he's solid. Like he's not going to pad the air yards. You know, I don't know if he's had very many, if any. I think might have like 1 week where he's been over 300 passing yards.
But he's got St. Brown.
But he has Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's been, I mean, he's wide receiver 8 on the year, and he's missed at least 1 game.
Yeah.
So
I feel like every game he's been banged up.
I mean, he gets 12 targets a game, and you're getting hit on probably half of those at least if you're not getting out of bounds.
He's not a huge guy.
No, but he had a great game last week, 30 fantasy points in our league, even more in a full point PPR. He had like 40 points, something crazy.
Yeah, he did great.
Which I think I might switch to
next year.
Full point PPR. I don't know. If I can keep St. Brown, then I will.
Yeah. I'm going to draft Cooper Kupp first next year then.
Yeah. Speaking of Cooper Kupp, let's talk about his quarterback, only because we mentioned him on last week's injury report. We talked about how Matthew Stafford was likely going to be out for the year. They don't have a reason to bring him back. What we did have an update on why he's not coming back. They're calling it a spinal cord contusion, which does not sound good.
No, it doesn't. So spinal cord contusion, typically that is a concussion that is towards the lower part of the brain. So your brain is made up of different parts. And the lowest part is the brainstem. So when the brain, it can shift left and right, but it could also go down that way. And that shock goes from the brainstem into the spinal cord. And it's a little bit more serious, and it has slightly different post-concussion syndrome symptoms. But it is a little bit scarier too.
A contusion is a bruise, most in its general terms. So you can think of it as a spinal cord bruise. But regardless, we already said he's likely going to be out for the season last week, only because he was no reason to bring him back. The Rams are doing pretty bad. But now that just confirms that if you haven't dropped Matthew Stafford already, you could probably drop him.
Yeah. Another concussion that I'm still very closely keeping an eye on is Joe Mixon, because he was close to being back last week, which was surprising.
So that's 2 weeks he's been out.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Because running backs usually come back. And I still think this is the carryover from Tua earlier in the year.
Could be.
This year that they're being extra cautious with concussions, especially in star players. And he sat out, but it looks like he'll be playing this week.
But Samaje Perine has been...
He's been doing great.
Yeah, he's kind of like Tyler Huntley being a mini Lamar Jackson. He's been a Joe Mixon mini. Yeah. And actually, arguably more productive outside of Joe Mixon's big game.
Receiving.
We have these organized as position, but let's jump down to Treylon Burks, just because we were talking about concussions. He left the game with concussion. A remarkable play. He caught the touchdown. Did you see it? He caught the touchdown and just got rocked helmet to helmet. But not that it matters because his health is more important, but he came down with the ball. He didn't drop it. But he also didn't move after he got knocked out.
Secured the catch. And Treylon was one of the question that was asked last week, who would you pick? And I said, pick Burks. And I mean,
should have listened to me. I don't know what he did. I don't know if
he still cut the touchdown. I mean, he's got the points. But that's an unfortunate way to end the game for him.
Yeah, I would say he's probably unlikely to play this upcoming week. But that's just one to monitor. Concussions are so up or down. If they pass the protocol, then they play, and if not, then in Joe Mixon case, that's 2 weeks that he's been out. But the Bengals, even without Joe Mixon, they beat the Chiefs for the third time in a row.
Third time in the same year. They did great. Yeah, that was unfortunate for me as a Ravens fan, but that was a fun game to watch.
One more Bengal. Hayden Hurst. I'm only bringing him up because tight ends suck this year. He's tight end 14 on the year, so in our league, he's startable.
Yeah.
If you're in a 10-team league, you may not be starting him, but he injured his calf, and it's notable because, like, on Sunday, they said he'd be doubtful for next week. So it must be a semi-significant injury for them to say, yeah, he's probably not playing next week also. So
I was watching that game, and I saw that happen too, and he, I think it was over a middle of the field catch, and he got tripped up and went down. It didn't look like anything crazy. He still went off. He still went off the field, and then he was just on the sideline without his helmet on, and he was not going in. So, but anybody in the Cincinnati offense is always a potential to play, right? Because they're such a dynamic offense.
Yeah, because any of them could score a touchdown.
Yeah.
Mixon, P. Ryan, Boyd, Higgins, and Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Like, and Hayden Hurst has been serviceable as a tight end. It's they have a very good offense. It makes I don't know what division they're in. What division is Ravens in?
AFC North.
Yeah, it makes the AFC North playoff picture very interesting.
Yeah,
especially because they'll play the last week of the season,
and that might decide it.
Yeah.
The Ravens have a pretty easy strength of schedule. Not that changes anything because they lost to Jacksonville. But from a fantasy standpoint, they're not great. But Cincinnati, I think the nice thing is you're kind of safe from, like, opposite of the Eagles, who might be resting players or putting their starters in less reps. The Bengals are not going to do that for the rest of the season because they're going to be head-to-head with the Ravens throughout. So even P. Ryan with Mixon comes back, there's a good chance he's going to get a lot of touches because he's done so well, potentially making him a flex play most weeks.
Sure. We have one more quarterback to talk about. Tua. Not a concussion.
No.
Hurt his ankle. He left the game, and I don't think he came back, but they were also winning.
Yep.
And they didn't need him to come back. In Tua's post-game press conference, he downplayed it and said that he could have came back and that he's likely to play next week. It was kind of one of those things, like, why risk it?
I was watching that game too, and I saw that happen. It didn't look like it was anything serious. It was kind of surprising that it was even a thing. I think they were just being overly cautious with him because it didn't look terrible.
Yeah, I anticipate Tua starting next week. Jalen Waddle,
that was another one,
another
in that game.
Dolphin. He left and went and got X-rays on his leg.
Yep, on his leg.
Ended up coming back, started the second half, but he only had, like, I think 6 targets and barely caught any of them. He didn't look that good.
No, Waddle had a hobble. He was waddling in not a good way.
Right.
Tua was not sharp that game. Tua was very high. His throws were sailing.
Yeah. In the Dolphins' defense, the 49ers' defense is really good.
It is good, but the throws, he should have made those throws. The receivers were getting good separation. Tyreek Hill obviously went off and had a big game when Waddle became less of an issue.
Sure.
But Waddle had at least 3 or 4 targets that I remember that if he caught it, if the throw was on, because he was open, it wasn't a contested catch. He was wide open. Tua just sailed the ball on him, and if he caught it, he would have been gone.
And that hasn't been the case with Tua all year.
No,
he's been, like, people have talked about how accurate he's been all year.
He's been very, very accurate.
So
it's not that game. But then back to Waddle. He had the leg issue. He came back. He had a missed catch, and then he wasn't himself. He just hobbled off the field. So he definitely wasn't playing anywhere near 100% that game afterwards.
He's one that's tough. I feel like if he's playing, you probably want to start him, just because of how dynamic the Dolphins' offense has been.
Yeah,
both Waddle and Tyreek Hill. But we'll have to keep an eye on what goes on with Jalen Waddle. The good news is he did come back in the game, so it must not have X-rays must have been negative in the immediate. But we'll see what happens the rest of this week.
Yeah, enough for him to come back for sure.
I think one of the last major fantasy relevant injuries that we saw this past week, Kenneth Walker for the Seattle Seahawks. He's been phenomenal since he won the job because their other running back got hurt.
Yep.
And this past week, he left the game with what they were calling a jammed ankle, which is odd. You don't hear that very often with an ankle joint.
I think that was mostly them not knowing what it was.
Probably. But that's all the information that I have so far.
Yeah.
It's a jammed ankle, and they're looking for more tests.
I've seen, the latest I saw was that it was midfoot, not actually the ankle. So it was in the foot itself.
I heard in the same interview, who's the Seahawks coach?
Pete Carroll?
Yeah, Pete Carroll said both things. Like he said foot, and then the next sentence he said ankle. So it's like, well, which one is it? And who knows? Again, It could be the fact that they just don't know somewhere in this general area. But yeah, they don't expect it to be like a season ender or anything, but he is questionable for this week.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of foot issues, particularly with the Liz Frank injury this year. So it might not be that, but running back with a foot issue is something to keep a very close eye on.
Yeah, especially in Seattle, because the backup to Kenneth Walker, who was already a backup, also got hurt that game.
Yep.
He left and did come back, but it's still I don't know who you would pick up out of Seattle in that offense.
They don't need to run back. They just need to throw to DK Metcalf.
Nonstop. Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
I said Kenneth Walker was probably the last fantasy relevant one, only because the Denver Broncos offense has been so horrible this year.
So bad.
Cortland Sutton hurt his hamstring this past game against the Ravens.
Sure. I was watching that game.
Mm-hmm.
I am pretty sure. I don't want to speculate, but I'm pretty sure Cortland Sutton just said, I am done playing football. I cannot take this anymore. He might have hurt his hamstring, but I'm pretty sure he willed it to be hurt because he looked fine. There's nothing, even afterwards, like, when when something grabs them, that happens. I just saw his soul leaving his body playing that game. Like, it was a horrific game on both sides. But the receivers on Denver's side, like, I felt pity for them as a Ravens fan watching that game.
I don't know what happened to Russell Wilson. I know they've said coaching, whatever, but how do you go from – he won a Super Bowl.
He did.
How do you go from a Super Bowl winning team in the Seahawks and all this talent that we assume that he still has to a team that has been the worst performing offense all year?
You got to think it's the coaching. I can't imagine any scenario where that coaching staff survives into next season. But they have Sutton, they have Judy, they had decent running back. Granted, the running back went out with an ACL tear earlier in the year. But yeah, I mean, Wilson is not making the throws. He did not look sharp. He was sailing the ball. He was making poor decisions. I mean, it's on him too. But I don't know. Maybe it's when you get $200 million guaranteed, the pressure of playing at a high level goes away. I don't know.
You saw that he has more bathrooms in his house than he does touchdowns on the year. He has 12 bathrooms in his house, and I think he's thrown for like 10 or 11 touchdowns on the year.
Well, based on how the season's gone, he's stunk up every single one of them so far.
Stunk up all those bathrooms. That's funny. Last thing that I guess we should know, I don't know if it's relevant. I really don't like Baker Mayfield.
No.
He was cut by the
he requested to be waived
Panthers
because he was not starting, not backup. So he was third string. Yeah. I guess when you're third string behind Sam Darnold, you got to ask for a release.
I bring it up because the 49ers are down to their third string quarterback. Yep. They did sign Josh Johnson, who's played for 14 NFL teams over the past 15 years.
Yes.
But all that to say, in theory, a team could snag him. I mean, he was a dynamic player in college. It just hasn't translated to pro level football, but that is something to consider. Baker Mayfield might have a new team in the coming days.
Yeah, he had a couple decent seasons in Cleveland, but San Francisco's an entirely different beast. The weapon set in San Francisco is not to say the Panthers were without weapons. They had DJ Moore, they have Donta Foreman, So that they had some weapons, but
they
it's
had
not
McCaffrey
when
Baker was
Baker
playing.
was there.
Yep.
Which would be interesting to see if they would reunite. But
I wonder. I don't know their relationship.
McCaffrey's like, damn it!
He's like,
come on, guys.
I came here to win a Super Bowl, and now I have to have Baker throw to me again.
Yeah, I can't imagine he'd be too excited about that.
No.
That's all speculation.
Whatever.
On our part. So yeah, I mean, it's playoff time is here. I wish they could see the look on your face right
I
now.
can't get out.
Walk around. You can do it through here.
Everyone, if you see a butt go by, that's Megan's butt.
I got a nice butt.
Oh, they did not see it.
They didn't
Sorry.
see it.
Sorry, you're lost.
So that's playoff time. Playoff time is around the corner. I think next week is going to be a big show because people are going to be setting their playoff lineups.
I mean, in a lot of people's case, this could make or break their
playoffs.
season.
Landry.
So keep an eye on all the injury reports. Set your lineup accordingly.
Yep. And if you're watching this video after the fact, first of all, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll keep coming out every week with some live shows talking about last week's episode. Also, if you haven't seen yet, we are giving away a PlayStation 5.
We should have started the episode with this.
Well, I think it's for the people that are stuck around and deserve to win it.
Yeah.
So we're going to give this away if we hit 5,000 subscribers before the end of January. So we've had a good bit to start out the contest, but the video is a couple videos ago, so you can take a look at it, the PS5 giveaway. And if you are watching after the fact, after the live video, and you have lineup questions, you can go ahead and leave a comment below. We'll go through any of the comments after the fact. And we'll give you our suggestions on lineups to set, or if you have injury questions, you can submit those as well once this video is posted after the live.
Look, I brought up the PlayStation, and we doubled our viewers.
Boom!
Look at that.
Yeah, it's like people like PlayStations or something.
So if you want to win this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll give it away after 5,000 subscribers.
Then we'll catch you again on next week, live from Recharge on our injury report.
Yeah.
Good luck this week.
Good luck.
Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun.
Should have been the Madden edition.